My son saved my life. When my son was 1, I decided to take a trip to Brazil to see my dad. It was the first time I was going back after my mom had passed away. And my father was remarried. I knew that it would be a very difficult time to go, and it was, because I had never seen my dad with anyone else but my mother. It was very rocky in the beginning of my trip, but towards the end, I adjusted to the situation. When I came back, I was still with my son's father. That same day that I arrived back in Miami, my son was 1. He was very strange with me. As a matter of fact, I got to the airport at 7 a.m. expecting to be picked up, and nobody was there. I had no money, no phone, and I waited. Finally was able to make a collect call, and when I called, his father picked up the phone and said, well, he's sleeping. He thinks that you're coming home at, later. So I stayed in the airport for about 4 hours with my 1-year-old son with no money, no car, no phone, no nothing. He arrived and was very cold. I didn't understand why. And that same day, I found out that he was in a relationship with someone else. At that time, that same day, I decided that that was it. It was time for me to go. Although he begged me to stay, denied the whole situation, I knew that this was my gateway out. This was my opportunity for no excuses to leave. And I left. I went back to my aunt's house with my son. And although I didn't care for God, it was the beginning of the turning point in my life. It was just my son and I knew that I needed to grow up and do something for my son and I to survive. After I left my son's dad's house and I went back to my aunt's house, I started going to school, and shortly after that, to college. Shortly after that, my aunt approached me with a job opportunity. At the time, I was working at a school as a teacher's aide, making very little, but it was, enough to maintain my son and I living under, my aunt's roof. But she approached me about a job opportunity with someone that she knew, and I went on this interview, and I was hired. I began to work for a mental health clinic, and I was 21 at the time. I had not finished college. I had no education in the mental health field, no experience, but I was the receptionist. I started as the receptionist there. One night after class, a friend and I, every Thursday night, we would go out to a local bar, and my friend and I were walking, and she was laughing, and we were, just, conversating, and she pushed me, and I fell into this guy, and this guy is now my husband. That's how we met. We met at a bar. I fell into him, and we introduced ourselves and exchanged numbers, and now we're married. So when I met this guy, Sean, he didn't want to know anything about God or the church either. So we were on the same page with that. We became close very quickly. He had a daughter I had a son, so it worked out very well. They got along great, and we built our relationship. We both came from broken relationships, so we understood each other. We understood the struggles, um, and we were very compatible. We decided to move in together, and during that time, his lease was up, and we decided to live with my aunt for a month or two while our apartment was going to be ready. During that time, my brother arrived from Brazil, and he was also living at my aunt's house with his wife. And a situation happened with my husband where he was desperate, and my brother counseled him and showed him what the power of God can do in his life. And God performed a miracle for my husband in his life. And my husband decided to surrender his life to God. When my husband surrendered his life, I still was not convinced. I still had a lot of hurt, pain inside. And I didn't really want to deal with that. I struggled a little bit, but little by little I started opening up my heart. But I still loved living in the world. I loved living the life out with my friends and partying, because I thought that's what made me happy and that's what fulfilled me. As time passed and I saw how my husband built his relationship with God, I started wanting the same. And one night I went out with some friends, and before I went out, I decided to pray, and I said, God, I really don't feel like going out, but I cannot leave my friends. I need you to do this for me. I need them to leave me, not me leave them. And that night that we went out, at that time, I was already cutting down on my drinking. I was a big drinker. My friends all knew it. So when I went out that night and they saw that I wasn't drinking, they started questioning and asking me, what's going on? Are you, now you're all religious, now you don't want to drink, you don't want to have a good time? I felt offended. And I was like, I don't have to drink to have a good time. I don't have to be welcomed. I don't have to, be unwelcome just because I'm not drinking or partying, or, I'm just here to have a good time, And one of my friends in particular took it very offensively, and she began to say horrible things to me and say that I was fake and I was this, and the words that came out of her mouth should not be repeated. She decided that she no longer wanted to have a friendship with me, and I knew that was God opening up the doors for me, and I knew that was my opportunity to come back to Him, and I decided to surrender my life to God. Pastor Lou was the person who helped my husband and I build our lives with Christ and decide to baptize. Pastor Lou and Pastor Dacuya baptized my husband and I a week after our wedding. From that point on, my husband and I have dedicated our lives to God, even though we've had our ups and downs, our struggles. There is no other life than the one walking with God. There's no other peace that you will feel other than the one that you feel with God. All the things of this world that you think are fulfilling you are not. They're just a mask. They're just temporary. But when you have God by your side, there is nothing that you cannot defeat. After 3 years of marriage, I became pregnant with my daughter. We were very happy. I had finished my bachelor's in psychology. I was working. We were both doing well. My husband had started his business. It was well into the fourth year of business. We were stable. We were making plans to buy a house. And um, when my daughter was about 3 months old, I went back to work after maternity leave, and one day I arrived at my house and I saw a business card at my door. It was from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That time I didn't think anything of it. I looked at it and I said, well, what is this? On the back it said, please call. And I called my husband. I said, babe, can you call? They left a card on the door. I don't know what it's about. And he was like, okay. So he called. A couple minutes later, he calls me back and he says, it's for you. The FBI wants to talk to you regarding an ex-employer.